What's up, guys, and welcome to today's video. See those books right there? On how I spent over $1.2 million in courses, programs, masterminds. And so what I wanna cover today is what I've learned from it, a little bit of my journey, why I think it's better than college, what you can take from it, and then how to approach these in the future, or if you're considering investing into one. So to give you a little context, I was a super sports fanatic as a kid. At 12 years old, I was already going to the gym at 6 in the morning, and I wanted to play in the NFL more than anything. So to give you a quick recap, all I did is I played sports until I was about 21 or so. I got injured in football, and then that was the end of that, 21 or 22. And from there, I started trying to build an online business, but I was super unsuccessful. For 22 to 25, about 3 years, I lived at home for a while. I had a really small apartment. I was paying rent to my parents. I did door-to-door sales. I was a server. And at the time, remember, I had a 3.9 GPA from school, but I gave that up to try to become something more. So I'm not saying that's the best choice, but that was the choice for me. And at 25, I was, my back was against the wall, so to speak. I really wanted to start changing my life. And so I was scrolling and I saw an ad on Facebook that said how to build an online training business. I clicked on the ad, I got on the phone, and I paid him $5,000 without even thinking about it. I had $2,000 in my bank account, and I'd put $3,000 on a credit card. And the reason was because I knew that I had what it took to be successful. I just didn't know what to do. From there, I made $10,000 in my first week, and then the next month I made $30K. The next month I made $50K, and then from there I made over $1 million in my first year. And now I have an 8-figure company with over 50 employees. I own 3 other companies. And that's a whole nother story. But what I learned from that, the first thing was that a lot of the things I'd been doing earlier in life prepared me for that moment. So when I went into that program, I'd already done door-to-door sales. I'd been a collegiate athlete. I'd done fitness or bodybuilding my whole life. I'd done modeling. So I had a work ethic. I knew it would be hard. I wasn't scared of hard work. And from knocking on doors to people who hated me, I was actually selling alarms in Alabama for a company called Alder. They're based in Utah. To getting on the phone with someone, it was so easy. It was the easiest thing in the world to me. So people will hear that and they're like, wow, that's impossible. But what I learned was that a lot of the skills you learn along the way can help you in business. And I think you'll see a lot of similarities between successful athletes and successful businessmen, or at least similar work ethics, or they might have had a background in that. And that really helped. The next thing is after that initial $5,000 course, I got into more expensive things, $10,000, $25,000, $50,000. My highest investment today is about $75,000 for a year. And what I left, a few years back, I was kind of more of a complainer, is I would say about 80%. Okay, so I'll write that up there for you guys. I'd say 80% of what I've paid for, I left dissatisfied. Okay? The 80-20 rule. Now, with that being said, people will go, oh, so, that's about $800,000 that you wasted. Here's the thing. When you go to school, or you go on a date, or you read a book, or you learn a language, or you get a job, there's always a chance that it could not go well for you, right? So when school doesn't go well for you, no one blinks an eye. Or if a date doesn't go well for you, because typically the expectations are lower, meaning that some people will get C's or B's or A's. But in courses or masterminds or business, people really expect almost like 100% success rate. Unless the work is all done for you, right? So someone were to run your business, that usually just can't happen, because some people are above average, some are average, and some are below average. And so as I was going through business, at first, I really thought like these programs were a waste, but what I soon realized was I was still learning things in those programs, typically what not to do, right? And that is just as powerful as knowing what to do. One of the things I laugh about today is people will go on Google and type in how to start a business. And they think, oh, this is free, so it's better. But in reality, they have to go through 55 articles and decide which one is correct and which ones are not, which ends up wasting more time than just paying for wrong information. So let's say the 80% of the stuff that quote unquote didn't help, and learning what not to do much faster. If I could give you any advice, and if you've taken a course or it hasn't gone well, or you're listening to this and think I'm a little crazy, understand that this 80% is just as valuable as the 20% that does move the needle, because it's all part of the journey to success. It's just like building a body or physique or relationships. You're gonna make mistakes on the way, but those are just as important as the good stuff. So that's something I really wanted you to take away, and what I learned from spending this much money on courses. The next thing is I want to talk about why I think this is a better investment than college. And I'll just do it with math. I won't even do it with, emotions. After football, when I lost my scholarship and I was gonna have to start paying for school, I realized that I was gonna spend $100,000 to $200,000 minimum to get my degree. No one really bats an eye at that, and ultimately it's because of the expectation. Like, people go to college and they don't necessarily expect to make a ton of money, therefore it doesn't bother them to pay a bunch of money. But when you pay for a course or mastermind, you're expecting the world, right? Which is fine, except when you have super high expectations, it sets you up to fail. It's almost when you're dating someone, it's not that you shouldn't have a standard, but it's the same thing. If you have extremely high expectations and those have not been set or met, you become very disappointed and disheartened and angry and sometimes bitter. And when I was going through some of these programs, that was what happened to me until I realized this, that I need to almost lower my expectations or not have expectations. Because once I realized that whether it was a good program or a bad program, it would bring me closer to my goal, I stopped getting so upset. The reason I was so upset before is I felt if it didn't move my revenue number, it wasn't useful, but that's just not true. So when people are complaining about, $1,000 or $2,000 or $1,000 or $10,000, I already said 1,000 twice. That's such a small investment comparatively to dropping $100,000 to $200,000 in college, especially when the amount of money is exponential. You look at someone who went to college at the age of 25, when I started making money in my business, and you compare how much they've made in the last 4 years to where now I'm 29, and it's not even close. I've probably made more in 4 years than they will make in the next 50 or 60 years, maybe their entire life, their entire take home for their entire life. And so the reward is exponentially higher. And so I don't never really am gonna push someone to buy something they don't want, but this is why I'm so big on courses, because one, I know that it got me to where I am today, and two, I feel it's such a better investment, right? This number might seem large, but I've done 30 times that number in sales, right? And so that would be my perspective on college versus courses. Now, number 4 is I want to talk more about, why people are not successful in courses. I think there's a few things. I think sometimes you could be getting in that course at the wrong time. So that course I paid $5,000 for made $10,000 in the first week. There were some people who made none. But right before the course, I'd done door-to-door sales, I've been a server, I've been a collegiate athlete, and so I was ready to succeed. Some people come in to something and they don't have any skills, or they don't speak very well, or they don't message well, or they're new to marketing, and they expect to have the same success rate as someone who is far ahead of them in terms of business maturity or skills that they're going to need. And so again, this goes back to what I just said earlier, is that when you get more comfortable with not having the expectation that it's going to be the magic bullet, and that it's going to, whether it's good or bad experience, you're going to learn things that will get you closer to your goal, that will make it much easier to swallow. And I promise you, it's impossible to have every investment in your life be absolutely 100% perfect or satisfied. It's just never going to happen, no matter how good the course is. And so when people go in there, I think part of it is that, and then the second part is what I talked about earlier, is you have some people are here, some are here, and some are there. And that doesn't make you a good or a bad person, but there's a reason that there's a bell curve in college, just like there is in business. And so understanding that if you go into that, where are you on that curve, or where will you fall, or are you okay where you may fall? Because having skill sets here and expecting this is not going to equal someone whose skill set is here and is getting this. And I think that's very straightforward and easy to say. So to wrap this video up, how would I approach courses, masterminds, etc.? I think that if you're wanting to have a more than average lifestyle, meaning you're wanting to make multiple 6 figures or more a year, that this will be one of the best ways to invest in yourself. Because ultimately, if you took someone, like I said earlier, who went to college for 4 years, and then you look at the last 4 years of my life, it's not even close, right? It's not even close. And I think I can attribute that to simply being willing to invest in myself and knowing that I needed help to get to where I wanted to be, and then lowering my expectations. So if you're gonna go into a course or program, make sure you lower your expectations, because you don't wanna be bitter after. You don't want to have that bad experience stop you from investing into other things. And understanding that this to me is one of the best paths to wealth and success, is that you have to be willing to invest in yourself. And if you're not, it's very hard to get there. So if you're gonna approach or pay for a course, just make sure you don't have high expectations and you go in with an open mind and do your absolute best. And either way, whether it goes good or bad, you'll have a good experience and you won't be bitter or hold resentment. So hope that makes sense, guys. Super enjoy making this video. If you like it, make sure to give it some love, thumbs up, comments down below, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.